Good morning, Blade family, and do we have a great interview for you today? Today, I'm going to be calling Brad Verrell, and he's going to answer the Family Focus 5 questions. Brad Verrell is an East High graduate from the early 80s. He's one of a very few people who won the Principals Award 2 years in a row as a junior and a senior. He was the very best we had in our shop department for 2 years running, and now he's a shop teacher at our school. In fact, I have 2 Blades currently going through our school, and one of them had Mr. Verrell last year, and I have all kinds of stuff that he built in the shop class around my house right now. Mr. Verrell reaches out and is a mentor to all sorts of Blades, past and current, and is a valued member of my team. So I think you're going to enjoy our interview today with Mr. Verrell. Take care, and I love you guys. So with me right now on the phone is, as I said, a man who I couldn't do the things around East Bakersfield High School that we're able to do without, Mr. Brad Verrell. Good morning, Brad.
Good morning, sir.
How are you doing?
I am doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty well. We're hanging in there over here at the Holland House. How are you guys doing with the pandemic in the Verrell household? How are your wife and your kids?
You know, it was rough in the beginning. Yeah, it was a little bit of craziness because my wife works for Dignity Health, so there was, changes in her job and things that were going on along with the changes in mine. My daughter's still at home. She's finishing up her sophomore year. Pardon me?
How's she doing?
Oh, she's doing great. She's finishing up her sophomore year at BC, and she's in a studio arts major. She's looking at going into teaching. So
awesome.
She's kind of batting that idea around. And my son now is married, and he is a third-year industrial arts teacher at Shafter, and his wife teaches kinesiology out at Shafter.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So it's kind of exciting for us. But pandemic-wise, like I said, the adjustment was really rough in the beginning. Just trying to get everything because I'm high risk and my wife working, in a hospital setting. It's kind of like, okay, do I quarantine her every time, for 14 days?
Wow.
And, we got through the initial shock, and now we're pretty much in a pattern. So we're doing good.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. The pandemic's been something to adjust to for everybody. I know it's a little more complicated over in your house too. So
well, and yours as well. I mean, being the principal of a high school and having to deal with everything is not an easy task.
It's been interesting. I'll say that. So Brad, what year did you graduate from high school?
I graduated in 1984.
Okay, 84. So
right in the middle of the 80s.
Right in the middle of the 80s. Okay. Our back to school meetings, we talked about this top song of the year for every class, for every graduating class. And I remember doing the activity with you, and I can't remember what song it was, but it was a quintessential 80s song, if I recall correctly, for 84.
I remember doing the activity, but for the life of me, the song title escapes me.
Yeah.
But I know I was surprised because it wasn't what I thought.
Uh-huh.
I remember that.
There were a lot of surprises in that activity, if I recall correctly. That's for sure.
There were.
Yeah. All right. So every week I ask the Focus 5 questions, I'm calling it, for our family reunion. And I hope that these questions resonate with the people who listen to this podcast. So the first question is, what teacher or staff member made the biggest difference in your EB high school education? And this is a person, not a class.
That was a tough one. When I thought about that, there were so many, because in the 80s, when I was at East High, I consider that those were rock solid, rock star educators. And I narrowed it down to one, but I'll probably give you a couple of other ones.
Yeah, and feel free to embellish. Yeah, go for it.
Mike Gutierrez was a second or third year teacher my freshman year. He had just graduated from Fresno State. He was my woodshop instructor for Wood 2. I had John Lopez for Wood 1. But Mike Gutierrez was the man that, outside of my father, I credit my father for being my master craftsman and getting me into industrial education, because my dad always wanted to be a teacher.
Oh, okay.
And but that never panned out for him. So Mike was the one that inspired me, that motivated me, that pushed me, that gave me the philosophy that, you know, everything you sign your name to should be your best work. And it doesn't matter what it is. It could be a paper, it could be a science lab, it could be your woodshop project. You're saying, you know, when you present your work, you're saying, this is the best I have to offer.
Okay.
And that is something that I tell my students every year. You know,
that's cool.
It just becomes a part of you. And, you know, like I said, Mike is just, he's phenomenal. And I still see him around. We bump into each other and, you know, reminisce. So it's really nice. I would have to say also Phyllis Agalos, just like I remember Dave Thorpe in his interview mentioned Phyllis.
Uh-huh.
I had the benefit of having Phyllis twice. I had her my freshman year and I had her my junior year. And so that basis that you get, I'm diagramming sentences. I don't know if anybody remembers that.
Uh-huh.
If that's going back into the dark ages. But diagramming sentences in Phyllis's class as a freshman was brutal, because she demanded that you get it, and was explaining why it was important. And, you know, no, you cannot end the sentence with a preposition. Don't have a dangling participle. I mean, you were just, you were there and you just kind of took it all in. And it's really amazing, because out of that class, that I had, my senior class, there are more than a couple of educators that went on and started teaching. So wow. I think that's just a testament to those teachers that we had. Larry Christensen, I had for humanities my senior year. You know, I didn't have him as a teacher, but Vernon Bell, rock star teacher. You look in the history department, and, you know, Bill Vincent, I had for freshman, I think, world history. Cal Myatt, loved Mr. Myatt, had him for government and econ. I just remember senior year, it was his last year. My senior year was the last year he taught. And every time he would lecture, and this is, I don't know how accurate this memory is, but he'd have a cup. He had a putting green in the front of the room, and he'd have a cup and a bucket of balls, and he'd hook a ball out of the bucket, put it on the putting green while he was lecturing, and putt. And we always thought that was funny, you know, because he was saying, yeah, I'm getting ready for retirement.
Right.
But we were so focused on watching him putt and seeing whether he was going to make it or not, that we actually paid attention to every word he was saying. And I mean, it was magical. And to this day, you know, what I know about government and economics goes straight back to Cal Myatt.
Wow.
So I just think there were just so many great educators. Elmer Scritchfield was taught math at East High for a number of years, and then took over the drafting program from Earl Verrell, who Earl Verrell was, you know, a legend. He was an institution at East High. And I got to have Elmer Scritchfield my junior and senior year for drafting. And then Elmer was my mentor teacher when I first started at East High.
Oh, okay.
So that was really special too. So yeah, there's just so many people, and then being a staff member, and then being able to work alongside some of those same teachers for the first part of my career. It's just,
I bet that was very special.
You know, choose my career. My career chose me, and I feel blessed in that sense. Because when I graduated, I wasn't going to be a teacher. Mm-mm. I wanted to build furniture and custom homes. And in the mid 80s, I remember my dad saying, you know, you might want to go to college. You've got the grades. You got accepted to UC Santa Barbara. Just go ahead and do it. And I was an engineering major. I got accepted to the electrical engineering program. And we'll just say that didn't work out. And I wound up finishing up at Fresno State with one of the last true industrial arts classes that went through Fresno State before they transitioned their program to a industrial technology program.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow. Okay. So I'm going to ask this question. I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it. What was your favorite class?
It would, you know the answer. It would have to be woodshop.
Right. Yeah.
The funny thing is woodshop with both John Lopez and Mike Gutierrez, they both had very different teaching styles. But John Lopez, when I had him as a freshman, he always referred to us as young men, and he really pushed, the pride and the responsibility aspect of working in a shop. And that stuck with me. Mike Gutierrez had a different approach. He still demanded excellence from us. But it was more of the craftsmanship, like I had mentioned before. But yeah, it would have to be woodshop. And the irony is when I started teaching at East High, I didn't start teaching woodshop. I started teaching metal shop.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So that was interesting. And I never took metal shop at East High. My dad was a machinist, so I was around a machine shop most of my childhood. But my first metal shop classes were at Fresno State.
Oh, wow.
So
that's interesting. Okay. So this changes gears a little bit. What was your favorite high school memory?
I thought about that one too, and I had to remind my wife of this. It was junior year homecoming dance, and my then girlfriend, who is now my wife, and I wanted to go to the homecoming dance, but I hadn't filed my paperwork with Bert Brown, who was our dean at the time. So because she went to South High, she went to another school, you had to file the paperwork to get her approved to come in.
We still do that.
And Vernon Bell. Vernon allowed me to sneak her in. And I remember him,
I think that still happens too, actually.
I'm sure it does, but I remember Vernon grinning from ear to ear. And, it was just kind of like, you kids have fun.
That's awesome.
Awesome. My takeaway from that was sometimes, as much as we are about the rules, sometimes it's not about the rules. And, that was just a special moment for me, because once again, then I got to teach with Vernon in Project 2000.
Right. Yeah.
And special man.
Well, as well as I do, a lot of times it's more about the relationships anyway. Right.
True.
And that's a cool story. How was that prom?
That was our homecoming dance, and it was amazing. People still danced back then.
Yeah.
We still had dances. Yeah. It was a different time. And they all started out the same way. Everybody was around the perimeter. They were wallflowers.
Sure.
And it took a little, it took the right DJ to get going and to get the party started. But it was always good. It was always a good time.
Were the dances in the cafeteria back then?
They were in the cafeteria, and where the line, when you go into our cafeteria, and we still have the cattle chute that comes from the door to take you down to get the food, the DJ would normally set up right there against that railing.
Okay.
And so they would be on that south wall. Okay. And they were good productions, Usually every club got to rotate and got to get at least one dance in to make money as a fundraiser. So good times.
I took the class, I think it was the class of 66 on a tour around campus. When I first got to come back as principal, they were having their class reunion, their 50th class reunion. And I took them around the school, and they could request where they wanted to go. And two of the places they wanted to go. Jean Philippe's son wanted to see the shop.
Uh-huh.
Said that was where he spent most of his time. So I took him by your class, actually. And the other place they really wanted to see the gym because they didn't lose a basketball game their senior year. So they wanted to see the old gym. And then they wanted to see the cafeteria because that's where the dances were. So it was really a fun tour, and it was kind of eye-opening for me to get that feedback from them. So
That's great.
So these next couple of questions are as much for our younger listeners as they are for people who might have gone to high school with you. But what is one piece of advice you would go back and give yourself right before you started your freshman year?
I would have to say that would be active in as many different clubs and activities and communities within the school that you can, because you don't want to graduate high school and have regrets and say, I wish I would have, because that magical time from 14 to 18, it's just like any time in life. You only get one shot at it.
Right.
And, I think I did my 4 years pretty well. And I'm proud about what I did, but, there might have been, a time when I could have gone into music, and maybe not taken so many shop classes. But I don't have any regrets. I really don't.
Right. So what advice would you give kids coming into high school now?
Oh, wow. Probably some of the same advice that I give my kids now year in and year out, which is believe in yourself. There's nothing that you as an individual can't do if you put your mind to it. And especially in this hypersensitive social media existence that we have now, I try and get my students not to limit themselves based on somebody else's opinion or somebody else's thoughts.
Yeah, that's a good message. That's a good message, yeah.
It's like, pick what you want, be the best at it, work hard, and, see where the cards lie. And the benefit of having taught, at the same school for 30 years, right now I have, the daughters of some of my first freshmen, some of the children of my first freshmen that I had.
Oh, that's cool.
I think my first senior class, I think they're in their early to mid 40s.
Wow.
Wow. And that perspective and bumping in around, when we go shopping at Christmas or the holidays in general, it's a magical time for me because I bump into so many of my former students, and to see them as adults and see them out in the community, and it's amazing. And it's very rewarding. To me, that's the paycheck.
Oh, that's awesome.
The pay being a teacher is good. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But the true paycheck is when you see that kid that you struggled with, or the kid that was the straight A student, and they're exactly where they need to be. That's what I love about it.
That's awesome. And the last question, and this one I love. What does it mean to you to be a Blade?
That one's an emotional one for me. I first stepped onto East High's campus in 1974 and attended basketball games in the old gym because my brother was playing freshman basketball for Joe Dominguez, and Joe was the senior, and he was the boys freshman coach. I think Ralph Cravey was coaching varsity, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. So that's when I first stepped foot on the campus, and my dad telling me, you're going to be going here someday. And so that was the seed that was planted. And then I watched both of my brothers and my sister go through East High. Both my brothers were in band. One was a drummer. Brian, Dave was a trumpet player. My sister was in orchestra. Diane, she was in orchestra and choir. So there was always the arts. The arts were really big. Both my brothers dabbled in drafting for a couple of years, but they were performing arts students. And so that sense of pride, that sense of community, of belonging, and how that, rolls into the whole East High family, is, I say it's emotional for me, because when I first started teaching, my wife let me know, with the help of Jenny Ross, that we were pregnant with our son Justin.
Oh, wow.
I found out at school. Jenny, she decorated my then photography classroom.
Oh, wow.
When my father passed away in 2000, I remember being up front in the church, speaking, and I can still see the staff, there. At my wedding when I got married, the staff, a good number of the staff came, and then more recently at my brother's funeral, I remember you and Francis and the other staff members that came, and it's hard to describe, and I get emotional when I think about it, because that concept of family is something that makes East High so special, because other schools have, other connections, but I really think that family has resonated at East High. And, they always say once a blade, always a blade. And I agree with that. Somehow it gets in your bloodstream.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. It really does. Well, Brad, thank you so much for sharing. Is there anything else you want to communicate to anyone who might be listening tonight?
Shoot, you threw me one that wasn't scripted. That's a tough one. Just stay safe. Support your kids. Let them grow, let them explore, let them do, because they're going to be all right. And I can say that based on my years of experience and coming and teaching at one of the best schools within the current high school district, if not in the state of California, and if not in the nation. And I truly believe that, the staff that we have currently, the staff that we've had in the past, is just an amazing group of educators. And I'm honored to be a part of that staff, and I'm honored to work for you.
Oh, thank you, Brad. I'm telling you, we couldn't do what we were able to do without having you around. What you do for our kids is absolutely amazing.
Thank
you,
All right. Sir.
I'm going to hit the stop button. Well, Blade family, I hope you enjoyed this week's reunion with Brad Verrell. What a great story Brad has to tell about the industrial arts and what a difference it made in his life, the ambitions of his father being realized through Brad. I hope you enjoyed hearing that. I know over the years he's touched the lives of a lot of students with his compassion and the way that he teaches. Certainly helped my son get acclimated to high school. Hey everybody, this is a labor of love, but I am also trying to make sure we're able to give scholarships to our students for summer programs and also for a principal scholarship for students going to college. If you are so inclined, please reach out to our finance office and make a donation for the principal scholarships. As always, I love you. Take care, stay safe in this pandemic, and doing it for over 80 years in East Bakersfield, better than anyone else in Bakersfield. Go Blades. Love you guys. Be well.